Peace, everyone. It's Black High Priestess. How's it going? So I'm going to be doing some cooking today, something simple. I'm just going to be making one of my tried and true potato dishes. And I do have an upload of this called Eating for Exorcism that I did about a year, maybe a year and a half ago. And so these are all good ingredients. Potatoes are good for getting rid of negative energy. Peppers are good for exorcism, clearing away negativity. And onions too for, absorbing negativity as well. Cloves is good too, but cloves is more of a spice that I use in some of my brews. I'm going to throw in some fresh rosemary and a little bit of lavender just to complement the kind of rosemary, the fragrant, fresh scent of the rosemary, and just to keep it light since I'm going to end up dousing everything in some Louisiana hot sauce when I eat it anyway. Here's some herbs that I'll be using. Green Harvest. It has a lot of good green stuff in there. Spirulina, kale, spinach, different things grounded in there. And then the herbs from Provence, it has a little more rosemary. It's got some sage in there, a little lavender, different more kind of floral herbs that I like, basil, things like that. Also great for exorcism. And then just some salt and some 4 black peppercorn medley and some extra virgin olive oil. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm actually going to be regrowing the pepper and the onion and demonstrating that as I've been talking about composting and everything. And I finally have an upload where my phone is charged. So, and as you can see, I do have a new stove and everything. I'm going to bring you all over here as I cut up some stuff because it's a little further away, but let me kind of bring everything over here and start chopping away. So I'm really excited to kind of complete my cooking show a bit. Or I really started, kind of get out of the amateur phase, but I need to sharpen my knife, so I'm going to start with that. Get that going. How's everyone? So I got some soil today. I had a bit of an adventure. So I've already washed the potatoes. I'm not going to peel them because I like the potato skins. They're really good if you peel it, but I like the skins on them. And I'm just going to cut up 4 that ought to do it. And then I'm going to put the potatoes on. Actually, right now, I'm going to first throw some olive oil onto the skillet here. And get that going. A little salt and pepper too. That way I can just pour the potatoes on and start it. And let the potatoes kind of get started because the potatoes are going to take the longest, than the peppers and onions. So, just be very cognizant of your timing and knowing when things cook and what to add to the skillet first when you're kind of, doing a dish like this, skillet cooking things. And the rosemary is good for kind of getting some good fragrance in there. So I'm going to put the rosemary in I'll let the potatoes go and then I'll cut up the rosemary. So I'm going to get that started. And that way, once I get some potatoes on, I'll turn the skillet on. So again, if anyone has any questions, let me know. Ooh, the knife is better. A lot better. You guys see the last few uploads I've been struggling. Not just with the knife, struggling to keep the charger going and everything. So I'm really feeling good about a lot of stuff. Again, I got a new stove, new fridge. I got some potting soil today. I've been watching a lot of home gardening hacks. And so I want to start demonstrating some of those things to you. And, I'm just really taking salvation seriously, being, a witch and bride of Christ and kind of demonstrating authentic witchcraft through showing what it's about, recycling, dealing with nature, being able to help others, being a healer, a supernatural healer. Peace, everyone. So, I'm really looking forward to that. And I really have just been kind of weeding out pun intended, with, the gardening and everything, just kind of weeding out a lot of energies and forces around me and the people hosting them that are unclean and that no longer serve me. And, just kind of getting away from the society of Black mysticism and, not necessarily Black revolution, because there are biblical mysteries that deal with, race and certain things that my brand is about, but just getting away from dealing with the lowest vibrations and moving out of, that level of initiation, so to speak. Moving into a space where I have ascended in my rites of passage to deal with people who are healthier, and who are vibrating high enough to really receive the mysteries that I have to offer, who have earned those rights, and people who have more to offer me. And I want people to understand it's necessary when you're dealing with the deity of Christ to go through a certain amount of suffering and persecution, and to really understand what it means to be Christ-like. And New Age practices kind of, deal with the doctrines of devils that get people into thinking that ascension and spirituality and holistic healing is about positive thinking and being happy all the time and not dealing with the negative, and, essentially living in a state of blissful ignorance and denial. And a lot of people who have not healed or have not been through any pain or suffering to really be a true healer and know what it means to, people who don't have a track record of saving lives or saving, souls, so to speak, too, are using doctrines of devils and New Age pseudo spirituality to, promote healing. And it's clear to me that people really want to avoid the real responsibility of being spiritual. Getting away from the physical. Another thing that I'm seeing is, aside from these New Age false gurus, who don't have the right to heal because they come from a place of privilege. I'm seeing, and this was, there is someone who has been asking certain questions on Facebook, and talking about, nudity and relating it to Oshun and everything. And so I want to just kind of respond to that, especially to women who claim to be daughters of Oshun, and especially to women who are claiming sacred sexuality in their practices. Spirituality has nothing to do with sex. Sex is a physical act. Spirituality helps you escape and release from the physical to experience divinity that is in another realm, to experience the spirit realm, or to experience the Most High. Sex is something that connects you to another person, another human being. Spirituality connects you to the Most High. So this desperation, particularly for Black women, to associate spirituality with sex is directly related to the Black woman's marginalization to being a whore and being a mammy and being a breeder. And just now, essentially coming out of that state of inferiority and realizing, that worth, but not having the wisdom or the guidance to keep it sacred. No different than these Black men talking about Black revolution with a slave mentality and no ability to actually lead Black people to freedom. these two types of individuals that I'm talking about, or so to speak, these two types of spirits, these newfound spirits that these people who are somewhat slightly or pseudo intelligent or pseudo spiritual, but are trying to access spirituality and divinity with a slave mentality. Black women associating sexuality and spirituality and claiming Oshun behind it. And I'm not singling anyone out. I'm telling you what Jezebel does. Gets lower level people, and I'm dealing with the Black community. I'm not talking about how white people and people of white privilege deal with demonic possession, because I talk all the time about racism. Okay. When it comes to Black people, overcoming slavery means overcoming those slave syndromes and the deviant sexuality that I talk about a lot that keeps Black people in poverty and in a slave mentality. Because during slavery, we were sexually mistreated, sexually experimented on, which again, interracial dating still has a lot to do with sexual experimentation. All right. We were made to breed. Furthermore, more importantly, I would say, the children, the offspring of the slaves, were taken away sometimes from the mother and the father and sold, as were men and women who were mated together or married, were separated to different plantations. So not so much the ability of Black people to breed with dominant genetics and to take care of our own, of the offspring that we have and that tribal, heritage that we have. But the separation from your loved ones is more of the slave syndrome that we're playing out, and why we deal with Black men who will get a woman pregnant and act like nothing happened and take no responsibility, and why Black women will get themselves pregnant and get into a situation to get pregnant by a man who's not their husband and end up being a baby mama like every other woman they know, because that training that was programmed in us to separate ourselves from our loved ones, to separate, to that programming that we had to destroy, that we are destroying our own families by still behaving like slaves and breeding with each other with no regard for the children, no regard for the health of the children, by being in a stable situation. Now, I'm just keeping it real. I'm not going to deal with what and why and who and everything. I'm dealing with Black people and the reality of our sexual deviancy. Another thing I want to face and confront as I need to be cutting this up is, Black men who are okay with me ridiculing white men for their racism and ridiculing white supremacy and all these things for racism, but that are not okay when I turn around and make the same ridicule of my race. As a Black revolutionary, you cannot keep pointing the blame at the enemy or the so-called enemy without creating revolution and evolution within your own home first. So, I'm not no groupie where, just ridicule Black men in certain groups and behind closed doors of white audiences and everything. We don't have time for that. If you are a Black revolutionary, you need to be creating change and creating things that are different. My name means chastity. So someone made a comment on Facebook on my Belladonna page saying, stop chastising Black men and uplift the Black man and everything. And I tagged my original page and I said, my name happens to be Chastity, so I'm completely within my rights to chastise Black men. Cal, with your sexy ass, I want to do so much to you. You can't be on my live feed, because I will stop and I will start talking about all of the unholy things that I want to do with you. So I'm going to act like I don't see you, but hello. And with your sexy fine ass, But anyway, basically, if you are a real revolutionary, you really love your race, you have to chastise, you have to discipline. Black men don't need to be coddled into inferiority. Black men don't need to be lied to about the position that they hold, individually or as a whole, depending on what the audience is or the subject matter is, and told that it's okay to constantly blame another man who has, for the most part, effectively conquered them, if you're still playing that victim role. So all I'm saying is, I'm at a point where if people cannot deal with certain subject matters holistically meaning whole, all around as a whole, that I don't have time for that energy. Real revolution is about change, and it's not about accepting the bad, and promoting the good. It's about changing the bad so the good can shine through a little bit better. That's just how I'm looking at it. I repost my uploads on YouTube if they save. I go live on Facebook just to be more intimate with people, but I go on Instagram because it's the only way that I can save it to my YouTube channel, which I haven't been able to do. But I'm totally got off on a tangent, which happens when I charge my phone and I know I'm not pressed for time. So that's why I need a cameraman to come direct me, because without direction, I just unravel. But basically, I'm going to throw these potatoes on to this guy with the olive oil and everything. It's quite a bit now, but I'm just going to keep cutting. But if anyone has any questions, I will, as usual, do live oracle readings and things like that. But I just kind of wanted to just talk about how happy I am to really be living in my truth and, focusing on what's important as Black High Priestess, which is really teaching people about, the spirituality that I was raised with, but not necessarily the religious indoctrination, but about the Most High, about the deity, the God that I serve, and the mysteries, which is the Vodun that I practice, or the witchcraft as well, which is what I'm doing now. Those mysteries that help me, utilize and teach, and experience the Holy Spirit and call on it. So I've talked about how Papa Legba, the gatekeeper of Vodun, deals with the left-hand path and sits on the left-hand throne of the Most High. And Christ, who is the Savior, sits on the right-hand throne and deals with that right-hand path. So when you walk the straight and narrow, it's not, the straight and narrow is not, just being Christian and being religious. The straight and narrow is actually having access to Vodun and Christ, salvation, being covered with the blood of Christ. Now, remember, Vodun is what the Israelites were doing before Christ came, because we had direct access to the Most High through the covenant that the Levites held with Abraham, and making blood offerings, sin offerings, burnt offerings, sacrifices. Remember, when King David was inaugurated as king, that was the biggest sacrifice and celebration that I believe ever was. So just read the Bible. I really have been encouraging people to read the Bible. I've been praying for particular people, and it's just unreal, like the gates that have been opened as I let go of, those like hidden forces in disguise. Sometimes you kind of got to tell the truth a little bit, an unpopular truth, to kind of weed out people who, one, it applies to, and people who really can't handle the truth. And if you're a truth teller and you're a revolutionary and people can't handle those harsh truths, they can't handle you as a person, as a, they can't handle your personality, your character, or your purpose. And you got to be careful of people who can't really handle you and love you for who you are. It doesn't mean they have to be involved with what you do and everything like that, but really loving you and supporting you as a person for who you are. A lot of people can't do that. They can only love you for what you're doing for them. So, you say one or two things about black men that other than calling him a king and a god, and then the other 10 years of black revolution that you've done goes down the window. I don't have time for that shit. But so what we're gonna do with this, sorry it's taking so long to compost everything, but what we're gonna do with this is basically, and the onion too. So what I'm gonna do, like I said, I'm gonna take these great delicious potatoes with the salt and pepper olive oil that I tossed them in and get those started with the skillet. All right. Get those on there with the skillet, and then I'm going to cut up this rosemary. I guess I'll chop it real quick and throw that on there too and let the potatoes start going. Then I'm going to cut up the onion and take it over to where it needs to go. So, but I like to give you all something to watch and talk at the same time about these subjects. I worry about black women sometimes. And, every time I see a black woman who's, trying to mix who's talking about polygamy and trying to mix, sacred sexuality with, African spirituality and using it as a way to be a hoe or as a way to receive likes and get attention and get people worshiping them because they, and trust me, there's a lot of sisters and priestesses who aren't fully initiated or aware that have some real healing. But it usually comes from a place of humility, not claiming, and, when I see it and when I see people misusing Oshun, I look at it like that's your fault, and I'm not taking all the blame for it, but, the society and the communities and energies that have had access to me, even if it's 2 to 10 degrees of separation, I just feel like, when I open the gates, maybe prematurely, but maybe with that sense of urgency, I immediately realized the falsehood in a lot of people who I was trying to help. And I had to go through my initiations to understand how to keep the secret and how to utilize it. And it's taken a while, but, it's bothersome to see that it's time to close the gates. People are misusing the Orisha. The Orisha are forces of nature. They are not to be used and spoken about in vain and used, because a lot of people are dealing with unclean spirits that are disguising themselves as African ancestors and getting people to do the very things that, go against what the tradition is about. And I just want to say this one thing. Ooh, got the rosemary on there. Put a little more herbs and stuff to let it marinate and get the potato flavor. I just want to say one more thing. As I cut this, and I rinsed this off already. What I do with the knife? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut it like really low to the bottom. Okay, like that. And everything, I turn the skillet down so they can